welcome to the fourth episode of the Environmental Biotechnology Innovation Centre podcast, Eng Biotech. Today, we'll be talking to two of our wonderful early career researchers about their work and life as an ECR. If you aren't aware, generally speaking, the definition of an early career researcher is someone in the early stages of their academic careers, for example, those who have recently completed their PhDs. At EBIC, we have a fantastic team of early career researchers with expertise spanning a wide variety of fields, and they are involved in all aspects of the research and work here at EBIC. And actually, an important part of the work here at EBIC is supporting our ECR and giving them a platform, which is why I'm delighted to announce that we're running our second ECR conference, the title of this year being Engineering Biology for Environmental Solutions. And this year we're actually heading south down to Southampton on the 16th to the 17th of September. If you take a look at our website, ebicentre.co.uk, you can register your place or learn a bit more about submitting an abstract. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to present your research. But on for today, we have here with us two EBIC ECR, Dr Yasmin Meeda of Cranfield University and Dr James Croxford from the University of Glasgow. So, Yasmin, could you kick it off for us, please, and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role within EBIC?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be on this podcast. So, I am a marine microbiologist by training. So, I did my PhD on marine algae, but now I work at Cranfield University as a research fellow in synthetic biology. And I'm using microbes, so bacteria and algae, to clean up drinking and wastewater.
Fantastic. That sounds brilliant. Thank you, Yasmin. And James, how about you? What are you up to?
Yeah, hi. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Glasgow, working with Cindy Smith, and in EBIC specifically, I'm working on themes 2 and 3. My background is molecular microbiology, so I did my PhD on streptomyces, and we looked at how microbial populations behave over time in industrial conditions. But now, in my postdoctoral role in EBIC, I'm working more in environmental biotechnology. So I'm thinking about things like engineering microbes and consortia of microbes and how we can actually get them to do useful things in realistic environments like biofilms and complex communities and things like that. And whether it has a focus on plastic degradation as well. So trying to remove plastic from our water systems.
Amazing. Thank you. So, what initially drew you both to your fields of studies, and what has actually kept you passionate about it throughout your career so far?
Yeah, I can jump in first on that one. I actually took a really non-linear route into my field of study, or so I believe. So, as I said, I did marine microbiology, but actually, growing up, I wasn't ever someone that thought I'd do science. I didn't really know what kind of careers there were available. I really don't like blood, and I thought the only thing you could do in biology or in biochemistry was sort of the medical or pharmaceutical route. And I decided early on that that really wasn't for me, but I've always loved the environment. I've loved animals and just kind of thought I wanted to get into science in that way. And in my undergrad of biological sciences, I did a marine microbiology or marine biology module. And I started to learn that you can use microbes or you can use marine life and do more molecular biology. So you can really understand key details, key enzymes that can help with the environment or to understand the environment. And then from there, I kind of shifted slightly to working on microalgae. Um, and in my PhD, my project was really focused on the fundamental science of how microalgae respond to the ocean environment. But then what I realized is that I really wanted to have a more applied approach where I can actually use the science that I'm doing and make changes that are really good for the environment. And so I think my initial idea of getting into science was about the excitement, the curiosity, and just kind of enjoying biology in general. But now it's shifted its focus to really using the science and the understanding that I have to help the environment.
And how about you, James?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I think there's a lot of parallels there with Yasmin in that. Well, I think I had, I guess, a bit more of a sort of linear and traditional sort of route to where I am today. I did my undergrad and masters in biochemistry, and I always enjoyed it, and I always enjoyed the idea that sort of bacteria were these little sort of cell factories that we could use and study to an endless degree, basically. Um, and I think something that Yasmin said that I think I really agree with is the applied nature of what we do. I think in my PhD and now my postdoc as well, I really got a lot of energy and motivation out of the idea that my work was having a real world impact and I wasn't just doing theoretical work. I really enjoy that, and especially with EBIC, obviously everything that we do hopefully will have a real world impact at some point. And I think that really keeps me motivated to carry on and keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It makes a lot of sense if you can actually, see that you're making a difference, and it makes all the long hours, I guess, and the hard work worth it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
with them, for both of you, how did you find your journey? If you're like transitioning from being a student to being an what we call an early career researcher, what's that journey like?
I think um, there are some things that are very, very similar for me as to being a PhD student, and there are some big differences. I think one of the similarities actually is the sort of level of lab work I'm doing. Essentially you're doing the similar experiments to what you were doing as a PhD student, for example. Maybe spending roughly the same amount of time in the lab, and there's a mix. I think for me the biggest difference is the sort of invisible background work I've taken on since starting as a postdoc. I think doing things like risk assessments and meetings and other things like that has been a big change for me. Some for better and some for worse, of course. And also, I think it's important to consider like it's very supervisor dependent, as is a lot of ECR work. Um, so transitioning from a PhD supervisor to like a postdoctoral or an ECR supervisor, I think it depends on what both of those people were like as to what your transition is going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think I had a really, um, I guess, young PI early into their career, so principal investigator for my PhD, and they were quite hands on, so I got quite a lot of support. And I think now, as a postdoc, moving into a stage where I'm completely independent, I've been writing grants, I've been doing the research, so similar to James, spending a similar amount of time in the lab that I did in my PhD, but doing all of these extra things. Um, you've got, I'm doing a lot more training for students or for research assistants. Um, Again, with the risk assessments and the cost, all of these background things that when you're a PhD student, or in my experience, a lot of those things were done for me, and I was there just to focus on the research. Whereas now I have to do everything. And I think it's really like the biggest challenge has probably been managing my time to kind of work on multiple projects at the same time, managing staff, managing students, and trying to get it all done in the working hours. We also run more seminars and we do a lot of talks and conferences as well, which we did do during the PhD. But I think for me, it's kind of ramped up that there's a lot more of that. And within EBIC, because we've got so many partners, we tend to move around quite a lot and travel. So I think there's also that aspect where you're going to a lot more meetings than I guess you did maybe just well, for me in my PhD, I had a regular update meeting with my supervisors, but now I have all these other meetings to attend as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Would you both say then that that kind of a new trying to figure out a new balance of work life extras has been one of the biggest challenges so far then?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is like the sort of bandwidth that you have to cope with that sort of Yasmin was saying, like new things that I think as a PhD student you're not even sort of exposed to, and a lot of things that I didn't even really like knew existed in a lot of meetings with collaborators that you just forget as a or don't appreciate as a PhD student that needs doing at all. So like what opportunities come your way, what you say yes to, what you say no to. I think that's been a quite a big challenge as well because you want to say yes to everything. Um,
Yeah.
but trying to keep on top of it all isn't as easy as it was in the PhD.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that makes a
agree.
lot of sense. That does. Thank you for saying yes to the podcast. But kind of counter to that though, what do you think has been your most rewarding achievement so far for both of you? What so far are you most proud of at the moment?
I'd honestly say that it's kind of the flip of what we've just said, literally, that being able to manage my time and learn how to perhaps say no or to agree on things that will benefit me in my career But I think the most rewarding thing has been gaining more leadership roles. So taking on these responsibilities and having more um, sort of direction in what you want, how you're training people, and the project itself. So that's something that I feel I didn't have as much of during the PhD, but now kind of being thrown into the deep end, really hitting the ground running and taking off with those skills.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like, I don't really like the term soft skills, but I think certainly I think we probably both have like massively improved that as a ECR. Um, and I think for me as well, in terms of the rewarding parts of what I do, and it comes back to like the applied nature of microbiology. My project, certainly my PhD, was because it was funded by industry. When you can go to industry and you can present a set of results, and then something happens as a result of that, and you can see that your work has an impact. I think that was really rewarding for me at the time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that I can imagine that that must be one of the best bits,
Yeah.
especially if you're already been able to work with industry and, get your work out there and be a big part of that as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that in my PhD. It was mainly what we call blue skies research, so kind of researching for curiosity's sake. And so I never had that aspect of having like an applied part to my project or working with industry. So I think that's also something that I'm looking forward to. But at the moment, the research is still ongoing, so I haven't really got to that stage where we can look back and say, look at what we've achieved and look at the outcome. But that's definitely to come. So excited for that.
That's good. Yeah. And can you tell us then, what is a typical day in the life, if there is such a thing, of an early career researcher at EBIC?
I think you alluded to it in your question. I know it's awfully cliche, but I don't think there is a typical day. I think it
I was going to
really,
say the exact same thing.
yeah, yeah. I think broadly, like if you take, I don't know, a week for example, you might be able to sort of average it out where you working in the lab and you're coming back to the office and you're doing emails or work or something like this, even outreach and things like that. Um, but I think it really depends. Yeah, really varies day to day, week to week, as to what you've got on. Sometimes you'll have a conference on for a couple of days that week, and you just get nothing done basically, apart from going to that conference. And other days, another week, sorry, you're in the lab, sort of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and the next week you're not in the lab at all, just doing computer work. So I don't really think there's a sort of good answer to that question.
That is a good answer, to be fair. It gives a good impression of what it's like for people who might be interested in going down this route. So thank you. What about you then, Yasmin? What's your typical day?
I think it's James has just hit that on a bit that. I think James has just hit the nail on the head with that because every day, every week can be different. Um, on Monday, Tuesday, I was in York at the university for a workshop and then came back and have been in the lab. But then next week, I'm not going to be traveling for work. So I'll probably be in the lab or some days in the office, lots of meetings sometimes, or we get the opportunity to go to seminars within the university and some weeks there's more seminars running or there might be more meetings. But also, yeah, if you're at a conference, you might be going abroad for it. And it really is varied. So I think it's hard to say because even when you're in the lab, it might be a really full-on week, or it might be that you just do one or two things. You might have to train or teach people. So I think it's a really diverse role. And if you really like that, then I don't think you can ever get bored because you kind of come in and you're like, okay, what am I doing today? And that's what I love.
Yeah, I think just on that as well, I was just thinking it also never goes as planned. Like you can make as much of a schedule as you want. Like this day, I'm going to be in the lab until sort of 1 p.m. and then I'm going to have lunch. And then from like 2 onwards or whatever, I'm going to be doing office work, but it rarely goes to plan.
Yeah.
So I think the adaptability is also like quite nice, but also makes things very variable. Like you do an experiment in the morning, it all goes wrong, so you have to repeat it in the afternoon, for example, and sort of stop doing all the work that you were doing in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find that. And then I'm like, oh, well, Monday, Tuesday didn't work. So I'm not going to do anything Wednesday, Thursday that I originally planned. That one has to shift because now I need to redo things. So it is quite hard to plan. So some days I just literally come in and I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? Because what did or didn't happen yesterday? And you kind of go from there. So I think it's that kind of comes back into this time management of managing all the things and projects that you have to do.
So it sounds like it's be very useful skill to be, good at adapting and changing your plans and having a backup. So with EBIC, obviously, there's as we've kind of mentioned before, there's 9 centres involved within the hub. But not only that, obviously within that, we've got people from all different backgrounds and different expertise. How do you navigate working in multidisciplinary teams? So especially when it's people with different fields or areas of expertise.
I think for me, the biggest one is because you're trying to communicate with people from other fields, and I think we all use more jargon than we realize we do. And so it has to be a very like active and conscious decision to really try and simplify how we're communicating, to make it accessible to everyone. Like everyone that we're speaking with in EBIC is obviously like incredibly intelligent, but sometimes you might be using words that you can use every single day and it just completely goes over the head of someone that you're speaking to. So I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, just about like actively communicating in the sort of simplest form that you can. And I'll admit that like I'm not amazing at it, and it's something that I think takes practice. But yeah, I think for me, it's like the removal of jargon, and then also trying to consider what their sort of priorities are and what their constraints are, so you can try and interact with them and communicate with them better.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think what I was going to say is listening and understanding their background and their knowledge and where they see the project and from what angle, and then being able to communicate from that, as James says, is really important to make sure that we're all talking the same language, because it can be really easy that if you're working with engineers or more bioinformaticians or mathematicians, and you're like, I have no idea what you're trying to say. And you just, it's not going to work. So I think it is really being able to understand each other and then being able to speak in that same language to get the end result, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense to me as well. Because obviously, in my role, I'm trying to translate your work and what you're doing, sort of to a wider audience as well. So I always very much appreciate when you use simple terms. So thank you. It does make my life easier too. And
Yeah.
with with your career so far, have you had any mentors, that have really shaped your journey as an ECR? And what was that like, the working relationship?
I don't know whether I've had like a single mentor or someone who I would have described as sort of one single influential person in my career. Like obviously my PhD supervisor helped me a lot during my PhD, but I think for me it was more I was our office at where I did my PhD was sort of open plan, so it meant that I could interact with all of the senior PhD students and a lot of the postdocs and some of the sort of early career researchers as well there. Um, and I think as a group, they've been really influential on me. I think just having chats with them and again being able to appreciate the background invisible work that you don't see as a PhD student and knowing that sort of exists just by speaking to them, um, has been really influential. And then equally in the lab, when it's not your supervisor or not your boss, you're more willing to go and speak to them and say, "Look, I've absolutely no idea how to do this. Can you help?" Um, and sometimes you're not. It's not as easy to say that to your boss, for example. So I think as a whole, just a group of sort of older PhD students and postdocs that I could go to.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, to be fair, isn't it? Working together like that, sharing experiences and the ups and the downs too.
Yeah,
How about you, Yasmin? Would you say you've ever had a mentor?
I think it's quite similar to James's experience, because I've had a lot of people that have been around me that we faced either similar challenges or they've gone through things beforehand. I guess it's also not just the challenges, it's celebrating the wins and successes. But I'd say that my mentors have been people who've directly been my boss or a supervisor at the time. From undergrad, I've had a great mentor, and actually now it's kind of come full circle that we're working on a project or to put a grant in together, with Fred, who's part of EBIC, who's my current boss now. So it kind of really shows that keeping in contact with people and having that mentorship has really helped me as an ECR because my undergrad supervisor, Karina, recognizes the work that I now do and wants to work on that and put in for a grant for potentially work that we could do together in the future. And then with my current boss from my postdoc. So it's really nice having that the network and the connection. But I'd say I also did a 3-month placement in industry, and the chief scientist there that was helping me with my work really kind of enabled me to see that the research that we're doing, how it's important, that we don't always have to seek validation, and that I should be a lot more confident within myself, not just always turning to people that are, say, in a higher position or they're senior members of staff that have already done it. She was really validating to try and promote everything that I'm doing is worth it and that I should have more confidence. And I think that's something that I'd really take away from what she told me as a mentor is that believing in yourself and being able to recognize that the research you're doing is good science and not always doubting yourself, which I guess is something that scientists often have is imposter syndrome. But really kind of self-reflecting and thinking actually it's not always having, like James said, an individual mentor, but also recognizing within yourself that you can guide yourself and kind of have that confidence. So I think that was a really important piece of advice. And we don't communicate all the time. It's not like I've got a constant mentorship from this scientist, but I think it's great that I've had really good talks and um, everyone's been really supportive of my journey. So I think I've been really um, lucky in my journey. I don't know. I think, yeah, I've been
Yeah,
really blessed with everyone that's been around me.
Yeah,
that's good. So a good network behind you both. That's a good way to do it, isn't it?
I think, and just quickly on that, I think everyone's always been more willing to sort of be a mentor and help than sort of I initially gave them credit for, if that makes sense. I think as an undergraduate, for example, you know, lecturers and some supervisors are a bit scary, and some of them, might seem a bit unapproachable. But I think, when you reach out and when you make an effort and ask for help, I haven't met anyone that's not been willing to offer help yet, and offer
Mhm.
advice and support. So I think generally, although it is scary at first, I think it's actually just generally a really supportive environment.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
fantastic. Yeah, so it's always worth reaching out, even if you haven't got the confidence there just yet. Just
Yeah.
go for it, see what happens. No, I like that.
Yeah.
That works.
And I think as ECRs, we're also responsible to kind of carry that on and share our experience with other people. And if anyone has questions or things, we can be there as a sounding board to be like, yeah, we've experienced this or we haven't. This is how we would navigate different scenarios to know that no one in this field is alone, even though at some points in a journey you might feel slightly lonely or you might be scared of professors, lecturers, people that have a really great track record. But we're all human, and I think everyone is really friendly anyway, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Cool. So, how do you manage the pressures of being ECR? Because obviously you've talked about all the different elements involved. Have you got any good strategies you use to try and maintain a healthy work life balance?
Ooh. I'd say that it's quite difficult. I think one thing that I found since doing the PhD, you kind of go from this student-ish lifestyle. I really tried to keep it more as a 9 to 5 because I'd worked as a data analyst before I even went back to do my master's. So I'd had experience in the world of working more of corporate world. Um, and I think it's easy to try and go into your postdoc or as an early career research to set those boundaries. But sometimes the nature of the work, if you've got conferences, you've got deadlines, things can ramp up. So every week you might have a little bit more you need to do. And so it's sometimes hard to stick to that 9 to 5. I always find that for myself. But I've been quite consistent with the gym to try and make sure I have a break and go at kind of the same time. And even if I work on a weekend to tend to my cells, so I work with bacteria and algae, and sometimes if you need them to grow up to a certain density, you need them to be a certain cell number. You might have to come in on the weekend to make sure that they've grown enough by a certain day. So that sometimes means you have to work different hours or on weekends. but I always try and reward myself or have a good break. Or um, I'm quite fortunate that the staff around me are really supportive, that say if you've worked a really long day because you've had to come in and do all of these different experiments for a 12-hour time course, you can have a half day tomorrow and kind of make sure that you're still having breaks and not really overworking yourself. So that's kind of how I see it. But I appreciate that sometimes it's hard for a healthy work life balance. But I think it's subjective and it's what works for everyone else. I try and enjoy things and reward myself and have fun things to do, even if I tend to work quite a lot as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. Like, I think it also is quite difficult because you know that your project relies on you and you alone. So then you feel guilty if you haven't come in on a certain day or something like that, or, are taking time back from the weekend. And I think as it is easy to come in on the weekend for the wrong reasons, but it's, again, you sort of feel guilty if you don't sometimes. So I think you have to sort of be quite strict with yourself, and you have to, as Yasmin said, have a good routine, sort of be kind to yourself as well. Um, I think that's something that I've been trying to learn.
Yeah.
Like, because like I say, it's easy to be sort of critical of yourself. If something's not worked, or if you have come in on the weekend and you don't want to take time off as a result of that. So I think being kind to yourself is quite important. Um, and then also, like, something one of the postdocs that I used to work with in my PhD said to me was that if what we were doing was easy, like, someone would have already done it before us. And I think that has helped me quite a lot because often things do go wrong and it's easy to get a little bit worked up about them. But I think,
Yeah.
again, being kind to yourself and just telling yourself that you are sort of doing your best and nobody else could probably do it better than you, um, and making sure that you're following through on that.
Yeah, I love that. That's some really good advice, actually, as well. So looking long term, what are your long term career goals? Sort of, how do you see your research particularly evolving in the next maybe 5 to 10 years?
I think it's difficult because everything's so fast paced, in, I guess, especially microbiology as well. But certainly for me, I think staying in applied microbiology, trying to continue the work that EBIC are doing, sort of applying for fellowships and things like that, and applying for grants because I've only just essentially started my postdoc. I'm aware there's still grants to write and fellowships to write, and so try and pursue that field. But I think it's also important to keep an open mind. Um, I love academia, but um, obviously there is applied microbiology sort of industrial jobs as well. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how my future's gonna go. I really love academia and I love the work that I'm doing. I think I would probably like to be more of a lecturer position. I love teaching, I love outreach. So I see myself maybe doing more of the lectureship role than a full-time research position, which is quite unique because a lot of people I meet would rather stay in the research side and not so much the teaching side. But I guess it depends on job opportunities, roles. It could be that I go into more of science communication. I do a lot of that on the side of my postdoc, so very active in communicating science. I really don't know how things are going to go. Um, People do say that there aren't enough professorship positions for everyone that's kind of working towards that end goal. Um, and I'm someone that likes to be maybe realistic with my expectations. I don't want to say I will be a professor and that is the be all or end all. I think I'd be quite happy still working in science, helping the environment, but in whatever capacity that I can fit in and use my skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a varied field with so many different opportunities, and things do change so fast, don't they? So it's because you never know what's around the corner, what funding, what grants, what projects. So it's also, it's quite exciting really to have a think about what could be coming out. And what advice would you give to young researchers who are considering pursuing a career in academia?
I think for me it would be, unfortunately, you have to be. It's a very active process, trying to pursue a career in academia. Like, I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give, certainly for like PhD applications and then postdoc applications as well, is, for example, contacting the academic before you apply, just with some questions, but it's more to introduce yourself than anything else. I think what I've found is academics are definitely not sort of hiring managers, and so if they can put a face to a name, I found that's quite beneficial. And unfortunately, that does take like a lot of effort because you have to contact them and then you need, set up a meeting and then ask questions about the application. And almost always there'll be something about the application that you have a question about. But even if there's not, just use it as an opportunity to introduce yourself before you put an application in. And I think generally that vibe, I think, continues throughout a lot of um, pursuing a career. I think it's a very active process and it doesn't have to be unpleasant. It's networking and it's just getting yourself known. Even if that's to your sort of lecturers at university and just making yourself known within the department, for example. So they'll say, "Oh, I've seen this opportunity, with a colleague. I think you should apply," for example. Um, because as I said previously, a lot of people are more willing to help than I think we all give them credit for. So I think just making it an active process, and I've also experienced that um, hard work, even if it doesn't, even if you're just sort of sat in your office or at home or whatever, and you're working hard, I think that rarely goes unnoticed. I think academics often recognize sort of perseverance and hard work as well, which they, in my experience, rate over your ability to do a certain technique in the lab.
Fantastic. Thank you. How about you, Yasmin? What advice would you give?
I think that was really great advice, and I
It
think
was.
yeah, I think to highlight that it's really important for you to get involved and to be active. And I think no matter the type of personality style that you have, it is important to communicate and network because there are always opportunities that someone might know from somebody else. And the world of science is quite small and interconnected.
Really,
So if you want to reach out to someone whose research you really like and you want to maybe visit the lab, you can always speak to your current network to say, "Oh, I've seen this person and I want to speak to them." So definitely agree with what James said there. But I think as another thing to highlight and really emphasize that we've kind of spoken about throughout is that failure is inevitable and to really manage your expectations if you want to pursue a career in academia because there'll be days where things don't work. There'll be weeks, months where there's failure. And a lot of the time, as an academic or someone that's gone into research, you've probably had good grades growing up, or you've done quite well in certain exams, or always really enjoyed getting the right answers. But then you get into research and you realize very quickly that that isn't how life goes. So I think it's learning that this failure happens and it's about how you manage it. And it's not a flaw of you. It's not that you've not done anything right. It could literally just be the most random thing like the sun wasn't shining that day. I think we've all become really skeptical
that's
about, you know, um, what works. I know people that might do a dance in front of the PCR machine, which of equipment to be like, this is gonna work. And so you do silly little things to try and understand why things just don't work because sometimes you have no idea. But to know that you're not alone in that and that we all face similar problems or similar kind of I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. And we all face setbacks and stuff. So I think it's really important to just manage how you are as a scientist and what you can do moving forward to not let it get you down.
That's perfect. Thank you. Because it's I say I've certainly found as well that it's a really lovely community generally, of supportive people who are all obviously they want you to succeed, they want things to go well, they want to learn more. So there is a lot of positivity out there, and you can find positivity even when things don't necessarily go your own way. But
Exactly.
yeah, thank you. I think that's perfect advice. Thank you both. And before we finish today, I do have some little quick fire questions for you. Um, don't have to be serious answers at all, don't worry. So it starts off, what's the most embarrassing lab mistake you've had so far?
Do you want to go first, James, or do you want to hear my
yeah.
embarrassment?
Well, I won't. I'm probably not allowed to expand on this further, but as in my PhD, I managed to set fire to my lab bench,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
and I found that I'm not good in a stressful situation. I'm sort of flustered a bit. Yeah, but that wasn't great.
Okay, that's
Wow.
thank you. Thank you
I
for
would
sharing.
not even I can't even follow that, like, what? I'm like, the benches, isn't it, like, flame resistant? I don't
Yeah, but
know.
like not when you spill ethanol on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wasn't great.
Okay, so my lab mistakes don't seem that bad.
Yeah, sorry.
Mine, I remember it was the first week of my PhD and I'd done my master's in the same lab, although COVID hit. So my supervisor obviously thought I knew a lot more than I did. And she just kind of said, first week, go on, here's some PhD students that are further in their career. You go and just do some experiments with them. So I went ahead and I was working on algae. So algae are eukaryotes. They have their DNA contained in a nucleus and they live in 18-degree temperature in a culture room. And they need light to survive because they are photosynthetic like plants.
Yeah.
And I'd done some work with my algae. And then the next day I'd come in and my boss said to me, I've been looking for your algae in the culture room, which has lights, it's 18 degrees. She said, where did you put your cells from yesterday? And I was like, oh, they're in the fridge. And she was like, what? And I was like, I just assume that when you work with bacteria, you can put your like plates of agar with your bacteria on in the fridge. And I just automatically, like, not even thinking, put my cells in the fridge. And she was like, yeah, they're eukaryotes. They shouldn't be in the fridge because I think you just killed them. Or they're going to be very, very shocked for this important, like, really important experiment we had the next day. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I need to maybe ask intelligent questions about why I'm doing certain things, not just doing it for the sake of it. Definitely didn't set anything on fire. That was like a really dumb thing that I did because I just didn't use my brain.
I mean, you
So
guys have you've covered both the hot and cold aspects there, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
amazing. So, if you could click your fingers and switch careers tomorrow, what would you do?
Uh, I sort of struggle with this one. I think I'd be a teacher. I think I'd be a science teacher. I think I enjoy that side of it. Couldn't be a primary school teacher. Do not have the patience for that. But I think secondary and up sort of science teacher.
That's really nice. And you could have gone for like race car driver or anything, but you're sticking with science. I like
Yeah.
it.
I'm also useless at everything else. So
Ah, how about you, Yasmin? What are you doing?
Now you've just said race car driver, like, I need to think bigger. I need to think like, what could I do? Um, I used to act on stage and I loved it. I think that's why I love science communication so much. I could not sing though. So they never gave me any lead roles, even though I really liked, you know, the theatricals of everything. So what now I'm gonna say is it might not happen, we're living in a alternate reality because I can't sing, but I'd love to be like a singer or an actress that I'm on stage um performing. I just think I'd maybe have to go to a vocal coach before that happens. So I will stick to science, but um initially I want to be a nail technician because I absolutely love doing my nails and I'm terrible at it. So but now you've made me think like really unexpected. I could be an actress.
I love that. Thank you both. Okay, last one. If your research was a movie, what would its title be?
I think
These are block
certainly.
questions.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I think certainly the way this week's gone, it would be something like "It worked yesterday."
That's really good. I like that.
I literally had something similar. I was like, it would have to be one of those like love hate rom-com movies where they're frenemies and then they fall in love towards the end because that's how I am with my life in the lab. Sometimes I love my cells and then next time I'm like, I absolutely hate this. What am I doing? Um, but I'm not very witty. I don't think I'm very witty on the spot to think of an actual title. I don't know if you guys can think of any rom-com films where they like the frenemies turn to like lovers. I don't know.
Can't even remember the last time I watched a film. um,
Too
no, that
busy.
is a tricky one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What could we do? Something about, I think it'd be like a sci-fi as well, or a thriller, because you just don't know what's going to
Thriller.
happen. Yeah, it's so unexpected. Expect the unexpected, or don't
There you
expect.
go. I expect the unexpected. That
Okay.
works. Oh, perfect. Thank you both so much, honestly, for your time today. It's like been really, really interesting to learn more about obviously what you're doing and what the world of an ECR is actually like. As I mentioned at the start of our conference, Engineering Biology for Environmental Solutions will be in Southampton, 16th to 17th of September. Hopefully, you'll both be there as well. Please do head over to our website, ebicentre.co.uk, and register, or you can also submit an abstract as well. It is a really, really good opportunity to present your research, and also it's fantastic for networking as well, which we now know is very important. But thank you both so much for today. It's been really, really interesting.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.